Hello friends of the Huertiña de Tony, welcome to another video where today we're going to check and I'll show you if it's possible to take cuttings from pumpkins or really any cucurbit. As you can see, I have here a pumpkin that has many arms and I'm going to remove some. If you're wondering why we take pumpkin cuttings, it's really simple. Maybe we realize that we planted 5 or 6 pumpkins and 3 are doing poorly, 1 is doing okay, and 1 is super strong. It's interesting to take cuttings from this strong pumpkin to replace the ones that aren't doing well or have died. It's also important to know that if this one has developed well, it's good later for seed production. It will be a good mother. Another reason for taking cuttings is to give them as a gift to someone, like in my case. I want to take some cuttings from these pumpkins to my sister. And another case is if we see a big pumpkin while walking in the forest, in someone's garden, we can ask permission to take a small branch and make cuttings. So as you can see, taking cuttings is really addictive, but it has many possibilities. Remember this external garden bed. Next to the meadow, I left it for planting pumpkins so they'd grow through the meadow. Look at the huge pumpkin leaves I have. Here's my hand for comparison. Okay, and it's a giant pumpkin. I got these seeds last year, and they are the only pumpkins I've planted because I want to get seeds. They are giant. I'll show you on Instagram when the fruit starts developing. See how it grows. It's a very interesting pumpkin, and I want to see if taking cuttings is possible because I want to give plants to my sister. As you see, it has many auxiliary arms. Although in theory they can be left, the only thing we're interested in leaving is a single fruit. We can leave the auxiliary arms for the plant to continue developing, so I'm going to trim some to make cuttings. Look, for example, this pumpkin is spreading and blocking the path to the garden, and it's about to get into the shed. So for instance, this one is good to cut at the end. Here's one of the chosen ones that still doesn't have fruit. Okay, and we'll cut around here to leave about 3 leaves, meaning 2 leaves and the bud. Here I'll show you why I think I know it will root. Notice it has touched the ground here. In esta is a piece of pumpkin. I'm going to take it out, no worries, and it's grown roots, as you can see. The roots come out from the joint, so based on this, look at all the roots. We are putting it back because I need a good pumpkin. You see, there's a root here too, right at the previous joint. So we'll leave it. Any cucurbit, I believe, when it touches the ground, grows roots. So following this, we know it'll grow roots here, here, and here. So we cut on this side, and we'll take this with us. Let's prepare the branch a bit. We'll remove the flower from down here, which will be in the water, and this leaf we'll also remove. So we'll have a prepared branch. Let's make 2. We remove the flower and the leaf. Alright, so more or less it would look like this. The next step is a bucket of water. I use a bucket because we need quite a bit of depth. I want to dip these 2 sprouts, alright, so we place them so that they are nice and soaked, and on the surface we have the tip. We do the same here, laying them down so both get wet, and we'll leave this bucket in the sun. Perfect, we'll leave it in the sun and see how it evolves. Hey Chloe, don't eat our pumpkins. Look how she's sneaking up. And exactly 1 week later, I put these in last week, we'll have our first roots. We could transplant this pumpkin into a pot. That's actually what we're going to do because it's growing roots. We could leave it in water longer, but it doesn't make much sense since it's pumpkin growing season. So look, this also has roots on both sides. Perfect for planting. My sister's going to get quite a surprise. Before planting our newly rooted pumpkins, I'm going to try rooting with sand. This method with sand works really well. I'll leave a video here on how we can root everything with sand. I've been sifting it, and we're going to try it with a container. We have a container. We won't make drainage holes because we won't need them, but the container isn't as big as the bucket, so I'll try to take the cutting from here, from this node. We cut and cut. Let's see. Oops. Now, yes, we insert one, and I'm thinking I'll also try to root it to see if it'll root just from this. We'll set this aside, and with this one we do the same. Cut here and cut all this. Great. I usually find it better to place the plants first and then add the sand. So once the plants are in, we add the sand. Once it's full, we water a bit over the top, even though it's not the usual. It's to get rid of any sand residue. We need to check. I've taken fine sand to make sure the substrate is getting soaked. We need to be careful not to overdo it with the sand. If the moisture becomes too much, we remove the excess water over the sand. Still, we're going to add quite a bit of water, letting it filter down to the bottom, and although watering with sand might seem a bit complicated, the good thing is that moisture in the sand lasts much longer than in the substrate. As I said, it's much easier from what we've seen to do it with water. But we'll also try this method, right? We can already plant our pumpkins. Actually, we could plant them in their final place already. Just because this one's for my sister, I'm going to plant it in a pot, because it'll be 2 weeks before I see her. So we just need to add a very good substrate, a good mix. That has plenty of worm humus or compost or well-rotted manure also works for us. We know that cucurbits are quite demanding, so we put in a good substrate with a good mix. And done! As I said, we could already plant them in their final place. It's been 3 weeks, and as you see, one of our pumpkins has died. It's true that there have been many drastic temperature changes, and that might have caused it to die. But look, this one is already sprouting leaves in just 3 weeks, and you see a lot of weeds. Now we're going to water it to wash it. And let's see if it's rooted in 3 weeks. It's true that the water method has been much faster, but let's see if we've taken root here as well. Let's see. As you can see, there are a bunch of weeds. So the sand is a good substrate for germinating at the end. Whoa, Pedrin, it looks like it hasn't taken root. Let's clean the sand a bit with water. And if we look closely, there are some small roots at the very bottom. Honestly, I thought it would have a lot more roots. So between the two methods, I highly recommend the water method. Anyway, gardening friends, we add another cutting to the list. It's honestly quite simple. I didn't like the water method more. It seemed much faster and more effective. Now then, we could plant this in a pot and give it to someone. But since it's already summer, I'm going to plant it directly in the garden. Anyway, gardening folks, I hope you liked the video, but above all that it helped you, and I'll see you next Thursday on La Huertina de Tony's channel. See you later.